Welcome to Walk the Walk, the channel where we talk honestly about life, travel, and what happens when you finally say, I've had enough of the UK. Maybe it's the grey skies, the politics, the cost of living, or just that feeling the country's lost its spark. Tonight, we're diving into why leaving might just save your sanity and what life looks like on the other side. But before we jump in, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from and what's stopping you from packing a bag yourself. And of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join me on this walk. It could be the first step out. Quick note before we dive in. This is my real voice, not an AI. Why? Because I've lived these experiences myself and think you deserve to hear it straight from me. The truth is, the UK isn't the place it once was, and I think deep down most of us know it. People like to bang on about keep calm and carry on, or at least we're not as bad as this country or that one. But that's just coping, isn't it? Carrying on only works if you've actually got something worth carrying on for. And right now, when you look around at the state of the country, high taxes, rubbish pay, the NHS falling apart, trains that never run, and politicians who seem more interested in playing games than fixing anything. You've got to ask yourself, why am I still here? That's the point I reached, and so I left. Best decision I've ever made. I lived in London for years, trying to make it work, like a lot of people do. On paper, London's got everything: jobs, culture, restaurants, all of it. But the reality is different. Rent takes most of your money before you've even started. Travel drains you, and the pace of life is brutal. I remember one winter evening, stood on the tube platform, train delayed again. Everyone packed in shoulder to shoulder, not a smile in sight. The air was heavy, people looked dead behind the eyes. And I thought, this can't be it. This can't be the best life gets. But in the UK, that is life. Get up, grind it out, pay your bills, complain a bit, repeat. And it's not just London. The whole country feels stuck. Everyone knows it's going downhill, but no one really believes it can change. That's the thing. We're brilliant at moaning, but useless at fixing. There's this apathy, like people know things are bad, but they just shrug and get on with it. Anyone who tries to break the mold or make something better, people cut them down. It's like you're not meant to aim higher. You're meant to stay in your lane and be miserable with the rest of us. Then you've got the mess in politics. Doesn't matter which lot you vote for, nothing changes. They make promises, they break them, and in the end, they all line their own pockets. The migration issue just adds to the fire. Boat after boat, headlines every week, towns stretched, services collapsing. And instead of real solutions, the politicians just argue or the people deal with the fallout. It makes the atmosphere back home heavy, divided, toxic even. When you live in it day to day, you don't notice it as much. But the second you step outside, you realize just how bad it's become. When I first moved away, I went to the Czech Republic, Prague. Different world. It wasn't perfect. The winters were long, the language was hard, but things worked. Trains ran on time, bills were affordable, healthcare didn't feel like a fight. And most importantly, the people didn't walk around like life was one long punishment. They had their struggles, sure, but the baseline mood was lighter. I remember once going to sort paperwork out at a local office. Back home, I'd expect sighs, delays, a miserable clerk looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. In Prague, 5 minutes, done. No drama, no misery. I walked out thinking, why can't Britain do this? The longer I stayed abroad, the more I saw it wasn't just about money or weather, it was about mindset. In the UK, people expect life to be rubbish. That's the starting point. In other places, even when times are hard, people expect things to improve, or at least they don't carry misery as part of their identity. South America has shown me this even more. I've lived in Ecuador, Brazil, Peru, and now Colombia. Each country has its problems, no doubt. Crime, politics, bureaucracy, all of that. But the daily way people live, it's completely different. In Ecuador, I learned to slow down. In Brazil, I saw how joy can live alongside chaos. In Peru, neighbors turned up with food when I was sick. No questions asked. In Colombia, strangers will stop to help you with directions or invite you for a drink. That sort of warmth is normal here. Compare that with the UK, where I lived in the same London block for years and never even knew my neighbour's name. One moment in Brazil really stuck with me. I was invited to a barbecue by people I'd only met once. Whole families were there, music blasting, food everywhere, laughter from every corner. I looked around and realised, back home, people would barely nod at you in the supermarket, and here I was being treated like part of the family. That does something to you. It lifts your mental state. You feel human again. Same in Colombia. I'll nip out for a coffee and end up chatting with the barrister for 10 minutes about football or life. Nothing fake, just real connection. Back in London, I went to the same coffee shop every day for months. Never once did anyone ask how I was. And again, that's not their fault. It's just the culture. Cold, rushed. Keep yourself to yourself. That's Britain. People love to blame the weather. It's always grey. That's why we're miserable. But that excuse falls apart the second you look at other countries. Germany has rain. The Netherlands has endless grey skies. Prague in winter makes London feel tropical. Yet the people don't drag misery around like a badge of honour. It's not the clouds, it's the culture. In Britain, being all right is the best you can say. Not good, not great, just not bad. That sums us up. So what happens when you leave? The first thing is you realise how heavy that British mindset actually is. You carry it with you at first, but slowly it fades. You stop waking up with that knot in your stomach. You stop expecting every interaction to be cold. You notice people are warmer. Days feel easier. Life doesn't have to be endured. And it hits your mental health in the best way. Anxiety lifts. Stress eases. You breathe better. And it's not just me. I've got mates who have done it also. One left for Spain years ago. Started out in construction. Not glamorous work, but he built a life. Now he's married with kids. And when I ask if he'd ever come back, he just laughs. Why would I? He says. Why would I swap the sun and community here for grey skies and shut down pubs back home? Another mate went to Canada. He used to work finance in London, stressed to breaking point. In Canada, yes, he works hard, but he skis in winter, hikes in summer, and he says his mental health has flipped around completely. He told me straight, the UK felt like a trap. Abroad feels like living. These aren't rare cases. Loads of Brits who leave don't come back, not because they hate the country, but because they've seen the other side and realised life can actually feel good. And once you've tasted that, it's hard to return to a place where misery is the norm. Every time I go back to the UK, I feel it hit me again. The stress, the gloom, the complaining, the heaviness. And every time I leave, I feel lighter. It's that simple. Life doesn't have to be endured. It can be lived. And if you're young, working hard, wondering if the UK is holding you back, it probably is. The world's open. Remote work exists. Planes are flying. Other countries are crying out for skilled, motivated people. Meanwhile, the UK wants you to stay, pay high taxes, and quietly suffer. You don't owe it that loyalty. Try a year abroad. Try maybe 6 months. Almost everyone who does comes back saying the same thing. I didn't know life could feel so different. Leaving isn't betrayal. It's giving yourself a chance. You know what it is? Britain has turned into a place where moaning is the national hobby. We moan about the trains, the weather, the government, the bills, the potholes, but then do absolutely nothing about it. It's like everyone's agreed we're going down the drain, but no one wants to get their hands dirty to fix the leak. If you do stick your head up, try to start something new, everyone else drags you back down. Don't get ideas above your station, mate. That's the British way. And the news doesn't help. Switch on the telly and it's wall-to-wall misery. War, scandals, bills going up, NHS in crisis, strikes, more strikes. Compare it to when I was in Brazil. The news there is dramatic, but it's also mixed with energy. It feels alive, even when it's bad. British news is like being drip-fed grey paint every night. No wonder everyone's depressed. But the biggest wake-up call comes when you see the other side. I'll give you an example. When I was living in Ecuador, life was simple. My rent was cheaper than what I used to spend on a grotty London flat share, and I had a balcony looking out at the mountains. I'd sit there in the morning with a coffee, hearing the neighbours chat, chickens clucking down the road, and I'd think, this is living. Back home, I was crammed into a noisy block, paying through the nose for the privilege of smelling my neighbour's burnt toast through the wall. Then in Peru, I got sick once. Nothing dramatic, just a stomach bug. But the neighbours found out, and they turned up with soup and tea, checking in on me every day until I was better. They didn't know me that well, but that's how people are. Compare that to the UK, where I lived in London for 5 years and couldn't tell you my neighbour's first name. We passed on the corridor without even eye contact. That's not community, that's survival mode. And Brazil. Brazil was chaos, but brilliant chaos. People there live loud. Music, food, dancing, laughter, even arguments. It's all out in the open. I once got invited to a barbecue by someone I'd met once at a shop. Next thing I knew, I was at a party with 50 people, beer flowing, meat on the grill, kids running around, old aunties telling me off for not eating enough. That sense of warmth, of being pulled into something bigger. You don't realize how much you miss it until you feel it again. Colombia has been the same in its own way. People are generous with their time. If you look lost, someone will stop to help. If you're on your own, they'll invite you to sit with them. I'll pop out for a quick coffee and end up in a half-hour chat about football or politics with a stranger. Try getting that in a London Pret. You're lucky if you get eye contact with the barrister. And that brings me to mental health. Back in the UK, it feels like everyone's struggling. The NHS is falling apart. Therapy waiting lists stretch on for months, and the culture doesn't encourage anyone to actually open up. We're trained to bottle it. Don't be soft, just get on with it. Abroad, you notice the difference straight away. People laugh more, they talk more, they include you, and that simple stuff is huge for your head. I had a mate back in London, worked in finance. He was permanently stressed. No time for himself, just working, drinking, sleeping, repeat. He finally snapped, packed it in, and moved to Canada. Now he skis in the winter, hikes in summer, and works a job that pays enough without killing him. He told me straight, "Mate, I'll never come back. London was slowly killing me." Another friend of mine ended up in Spain. He was a builder in the UK, fed up with the grind. In Spain, he's still on the tools, but the lifestyle was different. He finishes work and he's in the sun, beer in hand, chatting to his neighbours. He's got a family now, settled down. Whenever I ask if he'd return, he laughs at me. Why would I swap all this for grey skies and shut pubs? And honestly, he's right. I think what shocks you most once you leave is how much lighter you feel. Back in the UK, there's this constant background hum of stress, bills, politics, traffic, arguments. Just the heaviness of it all. You don't notice it until you step away, then suddenly you're somewhere else, breathing properly, smiling more, and you realize you were carrying that weight for years. People will say, yeah, but everywhere has problems. Of course they do. South America has crime, Europe has bureaucracy, Australia is expensive. But here's the thing. Even with those problems, the daily life often feels better than in the UK. People make time for joy. They don't see misery as a badge of honour. That alone makes it worth leaving. I'll tell you something funny. When Brits go abroad, we all bond over moaning about Britain. Doesn't matter if you're in Spain, Thailand, Colombia, you'll find a bunch of Brits sat around saying, "Thank goodness we got out." It's almost like therapy, and you can feel the relief in people when they say it. I remember sitting in a cafe in Medellin chatting with another Brit who'd moved out here. He told me he used to be an electrician in Manchester, always skinned, always knackered. Now he's working online teaching English, making just enough to get by, but he's happier than he's ever been. Sunshine, friends, music in the streets. He said, "I feel alive here. Back home, I just felt tired." That's it in a nutshell. And I get it. People are scared to leave. They worry about jobs, family, safety, fitting in. But let me tell you this. The hardest step is the first one. Once you're out, you realize it's not as terrifying as it seems. You don't have to stay forever. Try 6 months, maybe a year. The world won't collapse. And nearly everyone I know who's done it comes back saying the same thing. I wish I'd done it sooner. Meanwhile, Britain carries on as it always does. Politicians squabble, services collapse, the cost of living climbs, and people keep their heads down, saying, could be worse. But it doesn't have to be like this. You don't have to chain yourself to that mentality. There are other ways of living. And once you've seen that, it's hard to go back to the old, grey routine. So if you're sitting there now, stressed out, wondering if the UK is holding you back, it probably is. You don't owe it your life. You don't have to stick around just because people tell you to fix it or be grateful. You've only got one shot at living well. And if sometimes the bravest, smartest thing you can do is pack a bag and see what's out there. All right, let's get real. You're probably thinking, sounds great, but how do I actually do this? And that's fair. It's one thing to sit and moan about the UK. It's another thing to take the plunge and leave. But it's not rocket science. People do it every day. You just need a bit of bottle and a plan that's not written on the back of a beer mat. First off, stop telling yourself it's impossible. That's the biggest lie the UK drills into you. Oh, you can't just leave. It's risky. It's expensive. What about your pension? What about your nan's Sunday roast? Listen, I get all of that. Leaving is scary. But the truth is, you don't have to move forever. Start small. Do 6 months. Do a year. If you hated, the UK will still be sitting there waiting, miserable as ever. Nothing lost. But if you love it, you'll wonder why you didn't go sooner. Money is always the first worry, so let's tackle that. If you've got a trade, plumber, builder, electrician, hairdresser, you'll find work in loads of places. People need stuff fixed everywhere. If you're office-based, you've got two options. Try and find a job abroad or go remote. Loads of people work online now. Teaching English, customer service, tech jobs, freelance writing, even just doing admin for companies back home. If you can earn online in pounds or dollars and spend in pesos or reals, you're laughing. Your money goes so much further. I've met people living in Colombia who survive comfortably teaching English online for about 20 hours a week. They pay rent, eat out, travel around the country, and still save. In London, 20 hours of work would barely cover a room in a dodgy house share. That's the difference. Next thing, visas. Everyone panics about visas. I'll never get in, the paperwork's too much. Honestly, it depends where you go. South America is surprisingly easy in a lot of places. You can get 6 months in Colombia just by turning up. Same in Peru, Ecuador. Brazil's a bit trickier, but still doable. In Europe, if you've got EU ties or family connections, even better. And let's not forget working holiday visas. Australia, New Zealand, Canada. They all want Brits to come over, work, travel, spend money. They make it easy because they need workers. Language. Sure, it can be a hurdle, but you don't need to be fluent to live somewhere. You learn as you go. Honestly, the quickest way to learn is to actually be there. I learned more Spanish in a couple of months of chatting in shops and bars than I ever did on an app. And even if you butcher the language, most locals appreciate the effort. Plus, English gets you a long way in tourist spots, cities, and with younger people who want to practice with you. Don't let language stop you. Then there's safety. This one gets thrown at me a lot. But isn't South America dangerous? Don't people get robbed all the time? Look, crime exists everywhere. I felt more threatened on a Saturday night out in Leeds city centre than I ever have walking around Medellin. It's about common sense. Don't flash your phone. Don't wander drunk down dark alleys, and you'll be fine. And here's the thing, people look out for you abroad. Locals will warn you if an area's dodgy. They don't want trouble either. Family is a tough one, I'll admit. People feel guilty about leaving parents or grandparents behind. But here's the harsh truth. Are you supposed to waste your whole life because of guilt? Your family want you happy, and with cheap flights and video calls, you're never really that far away. You can visit, they can visit. The world's smaller than it used to be. And then there's the mental side, the big one. Leaving changes how you see yourself. You stop thinking like a victim of the UK system and start thinking like someone with options. Your world expands. That alone boosts your mental health. You're no longer boxed into one rainy island with constant negativity. You're living in colour again. I'll give you another personal moment. When I first landed in Colombia, I went for a walk in the evening. Music everywhere. People sat outside chatting, kids playing football in the street. And it hit me. This is normal here. People actually live, not just exist. That buzz, that warmth, it gave me energy I hadn't felt in years back in the UK. I went home that night and thought, yeah, I've made the right call. And you know what? Leaving doesn't mean you stop being British. I'm still proud of our humour, our music, our sport, our ability to laugh at ourselves, but I refuse to let that pride chain me to a country that's going backwards. You can love where you're from and still admit it's gone to the dogs. You can still wave the flag during the World Cup without having to live in a flat with mold on the ceiling and rent that eats half your wage. So here's the practical bit, step by step, no fluff. Choose a place, don't overthink it very much. Choose somewhere you fancy, Spain, Australia, Colombia, wherever. Just start. Work out the basics. How much is rent, food, visa rules? Quick Google search sorts this out. Figure out income. Can you work online? Can you transfer your job? Can you pick up something local? Don't aim for perfect. Aim for possible. Book the ticket. The scariest part. But the most important. Once it's booked, you're committed. Sort the essentials. Pack light. Documents, laptop, clothes. You don't need half the junk in your UK flat. Tell the people you need to tell. Family, friends. Expect them to say, "You're mad." Smile and say, "Watch me." Go, step on the plane, and the rest you'll figure out on the ground. It really is that simple. The hard bit is the mental block, and that's the bit the UK loves to feed. It convinces you it's too risky, too complicated, that you're lucky to even be there, but you're not lucky if you're miserable. You're not winning if you're just surviving. And remember this, you don't have to stay gone forever. Give it 6 months, a year. If you hate it, come back. At least you've tried. But most people I've met who've left, even just for a short while, say the same thing. I had no idea life could be this different. And once you've felt that difference, it's almost impossible to go back to the old grind. So yeah, the UK will tell you to stick it out, be grateful. It could be worse. But that's just the misery talking. Don't listen to it. Listen to the thousands of people who have left and found better. Listen to your own gut when it tells you that another winter of grey skies and broken trains isn't worth it. Pack the bag. Take the leap, because once you've walked a mile somewhere else, Spain, Prague, Quito, Medellin, you'll realize the UK isn't the whole world. And once you've breathed freer air, eaten food that doesn't cost half a day's wage, and felt the sun on your face without guilt, you'll know you made the right call. And trust me on this, when you're sat outside with a cold drink in your hand, neighbours around you, music in the air, you won't be thinking about whether it was risky, you'll just be thinking, why didn't I do this years ago?